how much power should trade unions have in the workplace? I'll go to Aditya for this one.
I think generally Australian law and the bodies that we have, the Ombudsman or Fair Work Commission, and they're pretty straightforward, and they are towards the rights of workers. Energizing and giving more power to unions might not be so good in a country like Australia, where the laws are definitely towards for the rights of workers. About the same as now, or somewhat less, because we see that productivity levels generally go down, thinking that this union behind people that would safeguard them in any situation. That's a false understanding by employees that we are backed up by union, whatever happens. And then because these unions have got so much say in the companies, many of the policies and having like EA, employee enterprise agreements, so there are many decisions taken in consultation with them, and then most of the time it is towards the decisions are inclined towards making the trade unions happy, so that the production doesn't stop and the unit keeps on running. So there's a kind of too much power to the trade unions at this point of time. The counter argument to this, people say that if the trade unions are not empowered more than this now, a capitalistic environment would develop, and then the business will eat out the employees. But I don't think that's the case in Australia, at least. So I would say somewhat less or about the same as now.
Awesome. Babu Gogineni?
I'm always for trade unions to have a place. I don't know what the powers are in Australia for them, but I do know that in the UK, as the trade union started losing power, exploitation of workers has gone to the extent that UK employers, when the UK was part of the European Union, UK employers were able to get a signature, usually a condition for employment, from a worker saying they waive the working time directive. So you might not be paid for the extra work, but the extra work is demanded by your job, and therefore you can do that. So I've seen it. It is cruel. It is unfair. So if the trade unions have no role, no power, then a cowboy employer, and most of them will be when you don't have controls on them, can take serious advantage of these people. I will say, let them have more power. It depends on what that more power is.
Yeah.
I'll
Now,
tell
is
you,
it
sir.
power to stop? Sorry.
I'll give a point over there. One of that power is when we discussed the last point about penalty rates on Saturdays and Sundays. So one of the points that trade union always fight for is to have that, or to have it maximized than what we currently have. But as of now, and I also want to quote that there was a couple of incidents, I think, including one with the coals, also with one of the celebrity chef restaurant in Melbourne. I don't know if you followed that. Couple of years happened that they were underpaid because of their breaks were not taken in many places. When these things happen, the Fair Work Commission had really digged into all the details, and they have helped the employees. In those matters, I would say that even though the trade unions doesn't have much authority in the business unit, there is this third-party bodies that will definitely protect the rights of people. In saying that, if you give more power to these trade unions, in the current situation of Australia, I think this would only lead to disadvantaging the business, because currently they're holding a good amount of power, and there is nothing wrong with the companies that are doing with unions or with the employees. Arjun, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say somewhat more, only because I know in the last 2 election terms, or even you'd probably say 3, if you include Tony Abbott's term before that, I feel like the unions have lost a bit of ground in terms of influence. Now, the unions are the ones that actually work with the employees to try and understand what their problems are, and they are the ones who kind of help Fair Work Commission or even the Fair Work Ombudsman to kind of come up with policies that protect the employees. And I think they have not had the kind of influence they could have had in the recent time. So I think I would say somewhat more from that perspective. But it depends on the industry as well. There's certain industries where they have too much power even, but I think they're far fewer than others.
This question might be industry relevant as well, Arjun. Very good point.
Yeah. But some industry, like the Metal Workers Union is very powerful in Australia. Like it just depends on the industry as well. But on the balance, I feel like having Liberal in power for so long has cost them a bit of influence.
So where do we stand on this?
I would say somewhat more. Sarath, did you want to add anything to that?
I think it's a good point that it actually depends on what type of trade union it is. Say, for example, nurses union versus teachers union versus a metal workers union versus hospitality staff union. All of them won't be doing the same thing, or all of them will not be are not as strong as others. So each of them is not strong as others. So depends. But again, you see, I mean, generally what happens is a lot of trade unions, they don't really align with the well-being of the workers. They just have some agenda points, and it becomes so cumbersome. And it also depends on what the state wants at that point of time. Say, for example, if you want to increase employment a lot, like in India, where you need to bring a lot of people into the economy, into the job market, then having very congestive trade union, it's having huge power to trade union might be counterproductive there, because you've got to be part of a union to do this, and you can't do anything if you're not part of the union. Then the situation will become completely different. So it depends on what the state wants at that point of time. If you want, say, I think in countries like Australia, I don't know how much this is rampant in Australia, but at least in the United States, where a lot of working blue collar jobs go to other countries because the wages are cheaper there. At that point, in those things, maybe it's important to protect the wages. That might be that may be where you would need more bargaining power to trade union. But again, that depends on how well the trade union is aligned with the interest of the workers again. But I think what I would say is this social democratic model where there is like a big government that is willing to mediate between trade unions and businesses. That's a good thing if you want to have powerful trade unions, because government has to try to protect the interests, balance the interests across the board.
Understood.
Yeah. Maybe in Australia, I would say somewhat less, based on what you guys are saying, but maybe about the same as now might also be better for me.
Okay. I think we've got a couple of somewhat mores and a couple of about the same. So let's just go in the middle for now. How much money should out of work Australians receive in unemployment benefits? So this